Hi, I'm James, WX4TV,
And I'm Michelle, N8ZQZ.
and welcome to HamRadio.World without the kids this morning.
And I forgot to say it at the same time.
Oh, let's try again. Now, we mess up, they mess up. It's part of life.
We're up early to share with you that, and before the children are even up, to share some of what we're doing to prepare for the hurricane. We actually, I made this list 2 days ago that I've been working on. These are just things that we need to do around here. You, I'm sure, have your own list.
I've got a long list.
That's kind of one example right there.
Yep.
Of things that need to get done. But we thought we'd share the importance of being ready for anything. For us, at this particular time, we're having to be ready for a hurricane.
Yeah, let's say real quick, for those of you who don't know, Hurricane Dorian is now expected to make landfall somewhere between Miami and Jacksonville on Monday or Tuesday as a Category 4 hurricane. That could change, but essentially the entire peninsula of Florida is needing to get ready for a hurricane over the Labor Day weekend. So Michelle has a big list of stuff that she's been working on since, 2 days ago. And I'll talk a little bit after she talks about what hers are. I've got duties with ARES, the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, that I'm working on. And we'll talk together. But mainly this is going to be
We're
Michelle's
just kind of
list.
sharing what we go through to prepare for a hurricane. I had never lived in a hurricane area in the past. We've got things we need to take care of. Of course, anybody needs to take care of. I kind of tell people, if you live in the north, think blizzard, think tornado for a 3 or 4 day event. Not necessarily the tornado part, but you're working towards being prepared for a tornado because it may tear all your stuff up. We do obviously amateur radio because that's what the that's what the channel's about.
World.
So we have to prepare for his duties. We have to prepare for the rest of us if we're participating in the ham radio end of it, which we normally do to an extent. We need to prepare. James has been a hurricane chaser for years.
1992.
Since 92?
Yeah.
So we've been around the block a few times with getting prepared, but I think this is also more than just getting prepared for a hurricane. It's just being prepared for whatever disaster, whatever might happen around our country or around the world, wherever you might live.
And let me interject here for a second. You mentioned that, I've been in hurricanes professionally since like 1992. Michelle and I were married in 93, and I think we're in the 20s in the number of hurricanes that we have had affect where we have lived.
Almost every Labor Day weekend or week, wherever we have lived, we've had a hurricane over the past 25 years.
Yeah. So, but what I'm getting at, actually 26 years, I think now, but we're still making a list because we still forget to do stuff, or each time we have a hurricane or something that we need to be prepared for, we realize, oh, you know what, last time we didn't do that. So Michelle is an organizer. I'm not. I just go out and do stuff and forget what I need to do. There's a list here. And this is, you might be thinking, well, I prepare. I'm already somebody who thinks of things. I live in the plains and we have tornadoes, or I live up in Minnesota, we have blizzards. This is good for anybody because we've been through this a couple dozen times now as a family, or as a married couple at least. And each time we realize we should have done this. We should have done that. So I want to let you go to.
I'll say we did a video after, I can't remember which hurricane it was.
I think it was Irma.
And every night, so we were without power for 3 weeks, I think it
Almost
was.
3 weeks,
Almost 3 weeks. And we didn't have a generator. We purposefully didn't use a generator so that we could learn whatever lessons we needed to learn. So every day we would, at dinner time, we actually would sit down together and purposefully discuss what we learned, what we got out of that day,
Yeah.
and anything we felt like we needed, or what we saw happening in the neighborhood, because we started to see the neighborhood really break down quickly,
Very quickly.
very
Yeah, it
quickly.
did.
So we sat down and we thought we would take, what, 20 minutes, maybe. I mean,
No,
that was really, we thought we'd take a lot less. We'd be talking for about 10 minutes and then would be done with it. And we ended up talking for
Yeah,
two
we
hours
talked
or
for
longer.
like 2 or 3 hours.
That we shared a lot of what we were doing and what we learned. And I feel like, while it's a terrible video because it ended up getting dark.
Dark, and we shot it with the iPhone.
Yeah, we shot it with an iPhone. So
And while
we,
you talk, let me pause. While you talk, I'm going to turn on make sure that we still have our microphones turned on. I'm going to turn on a little indicator so.
Okay.
Because one time when we did one of these videos, my microphone died halfway through, and I didn't know it. So I'm going.
Okay.
You keep talking.
So one of the things that we did was we sat down and we talked about what we had learned, and if you haven't already seen it and you want to learn some of the lessons that we learned, that was basically a debriefing, right? That was after several weeks of being without power that we decided to do that
Yeah.
video, because we had learned so much and we thought we were really prepared, but we live in we used to live in the country. Now we live more in the suburbs, and we learned a lot about the mentality of the people. We learned a lot.
Yeah.
We addressed that aftermath of the hurricane in a different way than we had normally done so. So if you want to check that out, did you actually post that?
I think it's posted. I posted it and then it was gone, and then I posted it again. It was like a 3-hour-long video.
It's there. If you're interested in being prepared, it's probably worth a watch.
Back in October 2017. I'll go through our stuff and see if I can find it. If it's not there, I think we still have the footage. We could put it up again.
But I'll say, one of the things that we've learned to do is make a list right away of things you think you need to do, because it gets chaotic over the next few days. Like with hurricanes, we typically have at least 2 days
Yes.
notice of it coming. One thing we've learned is, because we really keep up in the weather, we can hit the stores and the gas stations sooner than most.
Yeah.
There are several people around here who still have no idea that there's even a hurricane coming. And one of the reasons, I think, is because they haven't even called off schools yet, which is crazy.
I actually can't talk about that, but
Well, we've learned through the years, if they don't call off the schools early enough, then people can't get out of town. They
That is
can't
true.
gas up their cards. They haven't thought about it. So by the time they get to the grocery, by the time they get to places, things are empty. Shelves are empty. And I can tell, one reason I can tell is we went to the hardware store yesterday.
yeah, we went to Lowe's.
And they
yeah.
still have things to board up windows. We went to the grocery, and they still had food on some of the shelves. Some of the groceries didn't, but some did.
Yeah, actually, I'll put some video in here. I was at Target the other day, 2 days ago.
Yes, 2 days ago.
And the water was gone, all the bread was gone, a lot of the canned goods were gone. I shot a little bit of video in there, and I'll show you. This was 2 days ago, and today is Friday, and the storm at that point was expected to hit Sunday or Monday. So one thing that shows is that people here, at least in Palm Coast, are taking this seriously. But the fact that, there's still plywood. Now, I know Lowe's has been getting plywood, but when they don't cancel the schools in time for people to get out, or they don't cancel work, people can't get out and do the preparations that they need to do. And then it turns into a last-minute scramble. And then I think a lot of people this far north in Florida are thinking, well, it's going to hit down by Fort Pierce, it's going to affect Melbourne. The models are still kind of saying it's going to make a or a right turn and come up the coast, and
But
people
it's-
aren't prepared yet.
Yes, it still affects us here because if people are still farther south and they're moving north, they're stopping at your gas
They're stopping
stations
at our
and they're
gas
stopping
stations.
at your grocery stores to pick up their supplies to even get out of town.
That's true. And when
So
I went
that's-
out this morning I actually went out looking for sandbags, because this is the first time we've ever lived anywhere that we had to worry about some flooding. We have an issue in the shack back behind us where water, it looks like, could get through the door. Now this is a rental home, so if it was our home, I would change the drain field, but I'm not going to spend money on a rental home. But I went looking for sandbags, and they're out of them. But the line at the racetrack gas station was around the corner, and they had the yellow things on the pumps. Now there was a racetrack fuel truck there filling up
Which
the
is a
fuel
gas
tanks.
station.
Yeah, it's a chain gas station down here. So they were refilling, but you go through periods of the gas stations out of gas. And I remember before Irma, when they were evacuating the entire peninsula of Florida, people would follow the gas trucks to the gas station. At one point, I believe somebody pulled a gun on somebody over not getting gas. And
Because they were rationing gas.
yeah, you could only buy like
or
1 5
they
gallon
knew that was
bucket.
the last amount of gas
Yeah.
in that tank.
Yeah, so and that goes to, before we get into this, let's give a little bit of a preface in case that video from before is not up and I can't get it back up. Less than 3 days after Irma hit, some neighbors of ours around the corner had prepared for the storm by buying a bunch of freezer food. They filled their
Refrigerator
freezer.
food, yeah,
They got
refrigerated
ice
food.
cream, meat, whatever. So no electricity a couple days. They also didn't have any bottled water that they froze. We have a deep freeze that has probably 10 gallons of water frozen in it right now that we'll put into our refrigerator.
We need to do more.
Yeah, we need to do more. We don't keep a lot of cold foods that we need to worry about. Sounds like somebody's awake, so we'll say hi to them as they come through. That's Zechariah. Walk behind the camera there, buddy. Good morning, Zechariah. Zechariah still has school today at Daytona State College. They're canceling the school at noon. Buddy, you can eat if you want. You can make noise. They're canceling school at noon, and that means that even the professors at Daytona State they can't really get prepared until afternoon today. But these two brothers, their food went out, and we had one of my camera lights for light. We would put a battery on it, and I'd charge it in the day with a solar panel. And we had like we had regular light in our house. It's a bright light that we use for these cameras. They're LEDs. And they thought that meant that we had electricity from Dominion Power, not Dominion, whoever it was, Duke Energy. And they started getting upset. And at one point when the Duke Energy people were there trying to assess the neighborhood, they got very belligerent with the supervisor. Lots of cussing, lots of anger. Threats. And they started threatening people in the neighborhood who they knew had food. And that was a dynamic that we had not been through before, because living in the country at the Outer Banks, everybody had food and everybody helped each other.
Well, they know to prepare there.
Yeah, they know to prepare. But it was a different dynamic in the neighborhood. Our closest neighbors were, 200 yards away, and there was only a couple of them, and then it was miles until the next neighbor in North Carolina. But you have a list of things that you've been doing. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I need to go down this whole list, but some of the things that we've learned through the years is, you're not going to have power. Likely, I don't know about around here, but where we used to live in North Carolina, and Virginia, you would consistently lose power for 3 weeks. We always planned for longer because you just never knew. But, you want to be sure you've got laundry done, dishes done, and I mean up to the last minute. So I've gotten all the laundry done, but I'm going to do it again.
Yeah,
But
even though
I've
it's a
made
small load.
Right, even if it's a small load, I'm going to do it again. Make sure dishes are done. If you need to get paper plates because you're not going to be able to wash dishes, it's going to be tough to eat if you're washing either dishes all the time, if you have water, or if you have a way to make hot water. You've got to be prepared. One of the things that we've got sitting around is, the children have been checking all our flashlights and all our batteries, and this is a flashlight also that the children made.
Yeah, we're going to post a video about that from Huntsville, actually.
Right. It uses dead batteries.
Yeah, it runs off of a dead double A, and it'll run for like 5 days on a dead double A, and it's actually pretty bright.
It is.
And Faith Hannah at KD3Z is up this morning.
So, we have to prepare by getting the outside ready. We've got to make sure that everything is in, plants are in.
Right behind
limbs are cut down if need be ahead of time, so they don't actually damage something, because he's going to go around and you're going to take video or pictures of the yard and the house,
of the yard and everything inside,
of before and after, because if the hurricane hits here in any way, really, with any strong winds, even if it's not hurricane winds, we're going to have a mess in the yard, because that's just how it always is.
If you guys go back and look at the videos from, September 2017 with Hurricane Irma, the damage that was in our yard was from tropical storm force winds. Volusia County did not have any hurricane force gusts. And so those were winds that were less than 74 miles per hour. So it doesn't need to be a hurricane to drop a lot of limbs and break a lot of things.
Right.
But talking about the yard right behind us, we left this here.
Yeah, this is a clothesline,
Yeah,
and so we've got it out. We are concerned of a couple trees in our yard, and the possibility they're huge trees, and we don't, because it's a rental house and we haven't been in it very long. We aren't sure what the trees are going to do during this storm. Now, they've been around for years. However, there haven't been many hurricanes in this area
Correct.
You know how many years, but
It's been a while. 2004 was when the ones came across the state. So that's 15 years.
So it's been a long while. So, trees die and they lose limbs here and there. We've got some huge limbs over the garage.
And they're live oak trees too, so the limbs aren't that strong.
Right. So over the garage area and over
some of the kids' rooms.
Some of the kids' rooms. At the other end of the house. So we're concerned about those things. So one of the things we've learned that you need is a clothesline. So we're going to bring in a few things out of the garage that, if the garage were affected by a tree falling on it or a huge limb off of that tree, we're not going to lose anything out of that garage that we need. One of the things James brought up to the children is, if they have anything that is very meaningful to them, he's going to. They went on a mini de-expedition last weekend, and we haven't unpacked the boxes. So we'll see about unpacking the boxes so that they're empty, so that if they've got anything that's meaningful, they can put it in the big Pelican case. That hopefully it would withstand that. So we'll put in things like just any old memory type stuff. We've got to be sure that we've got all our insurance papers and that kind of stuff together in one spot, that we know where it is. I know where it is, but I need to be sure that no tree's going to fall on it and now I can't get to it type thing.
True.
Or if we at any reason decide that we know now what the path is going to be and we need to evacuate, I need to be bringing some of this stuff, especially if we think there's going to be possibly any water damage in this house. And
yeah, we may have. I'm concerned we may have water in our house.
Yes, I'm guessing that we're going to have at least some in the shack, from just a normal average rainstorm.
Yeah,
I've
taken video of some of these rainstorms, and we flood in the backyard. It's not graded very well. But we've gone to the grocery, we've gotten our foods. We realized that for the first day or so, the actual hurricane likely will lose power at some point. I don't think I've ever been in one that we didn't lose power. So we'll have stuff that we can get out of the refrigerator for that day: lunch meat sandwich, cold cuts, that kind of stuff.
not anything we've got to heat up, obviously. We've got various foods. I bought the children some donuts so they could have kind of a special day or whatever.
Well, yeah, but talking about the refrigerator, when we freeze all these gallon jugs of water in smaller bottles, we then put them in the refrigerator. We also already have turned our refrigerator and both our freezers down to as cold as they'll get. And this is several days before we could lose power to try to chill everything. But when you have that water that's frozen in a gallon jug, and you put like 5 or 6 of them in your refrigerator, that extends the time that your refrigerator stays cold, and you can open and close it. So in Irma, we were able to eat up the stuff out of the refrigerator with the exception of a couple things that we lost. And I believe it was, about a week before we realized we need to throw this stuff away because the ice is melted.
It was still cold at about a week.
Yeah.
But there were just some things that you're never going to eat up.
I think we had
ketchups and stuff. You're just never going to eat it up. So we did lose some things, but like all this week, we've been eating up our freezer food and we've been eating up our refrigerator food, so that we go into this with next to nothing in our freezer and next to nothing in our refrigerator. That's just how we do. We bought milk because, again, we'll be able to if we remember to do all the frozen water, then we should be able to have milk or cereal. As long as we're not opening the refrigerator door a whole lot, we'll be able to have that for a few days. But again, we need to get our water done, so that's on my list. If we're gonna grill afterwards, because obviously you're losing power, make sure you've got your charcoal or your propane. We use the sun oven a lot afterwards because it's been rainy season, so at this time of year we don't get to use the sun oven a whole lot. However, after a hurricane, not during a hurricane, but after a hurricane, the sun is normally out pretty nicely for several days.
Yeah,
so
2 or 3 days, yeah.
So we'll do the sun oven, and in the sun oven we can purify our water and all that if we need to. It'll take care of all that. Before the storm, we're still going to be preparing by if the grocery's out, of bread, then you bake your bread. You just have anything that you're going to need before the storm. Again, I got to move all the plants. Let me see here. One thing that we do is we make sure that again, all our, I'm going to say valuables, but it's not so much valuable monetarily, but just collecting
memories.
all the things, all the memory boxes, your photo albums or your discs, if you've got the discs that you want, the irreplaceable stuff. We've still got to gather that stuff up, and the children need to be involved also. The grandchildren, whoever, they need to be involved and feel needed in this process. So they'll all have their jobs of would you go find this, that, other. I mean, there's some stuff we can't do until last minute, like filling the bathtub with water. If you think you're going to need more water, then you fill your wash machine with water. If we fill up the freezer and the refrigerator with water bottles as they thaw, now we've got more water. We kind of get things ready for after the storm. After the storm, we need hot water for doing laundry, for cooking maybe.
Yeah.
So we have like black plastic bottle. We found that plastic worked better. We did we did some testing last time. So I've got to make sure that we've got our black spray painted bottles.
We took water bottles and I think Florida Natural or something, this thin plastic, clear plastic
like the old juice bottles.
Juice bottles, and we spray painted them flat black. And you can take those and leave them in the Florida sun for 3 or 4 hours. And I think I don't think we actually posted a video. We tried doing a video once where we measured the water temperature, but the water temperature was up to like 125 degrees just sitting out in the sun in these bottles. And so in DeLand, when we had the last Hurricane Irma, we sometimes needed to like wash the forks or something that we had cooked in the sun oven. I don't remember, but we had hot water. We didn't lose our water there. Eventually, they gave a boil water notice, which in the sun oven you can actually sterilize your water because it will boil it. It takes a long time. But another thing we did is we hooked all of our hoses together, and we kept the pressure on, and laid it out in the yard so that within 20 minutes you had a good 2 minutes worth of very hot water that if you needed to wash your hands,
Right.
or take a shower or something, if you wanted hot water. We didn't want hot water for showers. I enjoyed those cold showers
Right.
we had.
Yeah, we all
By
did.
the end of the day, cleaning up the yard and everything, you were hot. What else have you got? Oh, we need to talk about stuff like this.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to say also, we've got to get in the garbage cans. So the garbage today is the last pickup. So it might be the last pickup for the next 3 weeks. So be sure that your
Yeah.
house has that kind of stuff. And anything, oopsie, sorry, lost my microphone. Anything becomes a projectile during.
Yeah.
Even before hurricane winds, anything can become a projectile because it only takes a heavy gust that's not even hurricane force. And now you've got a projectile in the air. So anything that you think can become a projectile needs to come in.
Yep. We took down our hex beam yesterday, and I want to thank, we had 2 friends show up, and a third was on his way and didn't make it in time, but he was coming. The kids were involved with that. The girls helped bring that in, and we had to cut the coax off, and we got that all down. The tower's laying down in the backyard. We will be lowering our dipole to a point that it will have enough slack that hopefully it won't break out of the trees. Somebody has found that they needed the line that we tie it up more than we do, and they had gone and cut off the extra Dacron rope at both cleats. So
Somebody keeps stealing our.
yeah, well, I think we may borrow somebody's trail camera and get a picture, and then make a YouTube video with that picture or something. But things to keep in mind: medicines. If you have medicine that you need, I just heard on the radio this morning the state of Florida, because of the state of emergency, has made it so that you can refill your medicine early for a 30-day supply, and your insurance company will pay for it if you have insurance.
Because afterwards, even the pharmacies are closed.
Yeah,
I mean,
were.
Walmart was closed for 3 weeks
Yeah,
after
Walmart
the
Deland
last
was closed,
hurricane
yeah, almost
that
3
we
weeks,
had.
yeah.
That's huge when Walmart's closed for 3 weeks.
It is.
So a lot of the pharmacies didn't have power for several days at least. They eventually got generator power, but they didn't. They were on the generators for a good 3 weeks.
Yeah. That right there is part of our hex beam. That's why it's here. We don't just keep a messy kitchen table.
No.
This is just a part we're going to put into a go box that I had hoped to have done by this weekend, but that's not going to get done.
One thing that people don't seem to think about is they're so busy preparing for their house that they don't think about afterwards. So afterwards, Lowe's and all that, they're not going to be open right away. And you can't necessarily get to Lowe's to get to the parts that you need to clean up your yard and your road and your streets, even out of your neighborhood. So it's like, get your chainsaws ready now, get your work gloves now, get your supplies that you will need to cut your way out of your neighborhood, your house, your driveway, whatever it happens to be. You want to be sure that that's ready now. So you want to get your oil for your chainsaw and your
gasoline.
your gasoline, and try it out. Make sure it's working now, because it's too late afterwards if you can't get to Lowe's, because it's going to be a week before you can cut out of your neighborhood. But be prepared. It's a great time afterwards because the neighborhood will pull together.
Except for the 2 guys around the corner.
Except a few. The neighborhood, for the most part, will pull together at the end, and it's amazing what a neighborhood can do together. For us, I'll say another thing that we need to do is be sure that all of our solar batteries are charged, and we need to do that today. Start
we'll
putting
do
out
that.
our batteries in the yard while we have sun. Because once
Yeah.
the hurricane starts coming in, the cloud bands and the rain bands will prevent us from charging for several days.
Yeah. So what I've done, and this is kind of a shame on me thing, we have become so dependent upon the bioenno lithium iron phosphate batteries that I only ever think about those. But we've still got two perfectly good AGM batteries that are 83 amp hours, and they sit in the garage and they don't get charged.
Because they weigh a ton.
They weigh a ton. So I'm going to take them out in the back. We'll set up the bioenno solar panel, and we'll charge them all the way up today. And so what we can do with those, although they really won't run the shack very well because when you transmit, the voltage drops too low. What they will do is they'll run, we have at least one, I'm going to see if we can find another couple 12-volt fans that will run off of 12 volts. And it gets hot and humid. And that little bit of breeze, just an infinitesimal amount of breeze helps a lot.
It's almost impossible to sleep after a hurricane. It is so hot and so humid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fans, those things will run the fans, and I really don't care if I run the battery all the way down and ruin it because we don't use them very much anyway. I don't want to ruin it, but all of our bioenno batteries are already charged. They're on the chargers. They're fully charged. If after the storm, if I get deployed to go into another area that's been hit harder than ours, that'll be ready to go.
And we need to get ready separately because you're deploying.
Yes.
You've been working on it all week.
Yeah. So
because you're working at the EOC.
Yeah.
So we need to prepare differently in that, like the children and I need to make separate go bags and separate preparation plans than you need to make.
Yep. So today my go bag will be packed for a deployment to the Emergency Operations Center, or if I need to go cover a shelter, I may go do that. I'm the emergency coordinator for Aries in Volusia County, Florida, and if we end up going to a full-scale activation of the EOC and they open shelters, if they do that, we'll have to man those shelters with communications and also man the EOC. So for the last, 2 days, I've been at the EOC quite a bit, going to some meetings, planning, getting together our Aries members who would be able to deploy. So I've got a separate list that I have to go over that I can't share here. And then Michelle's got hers, and they kind of somewhat intertwine because as long as we have power, and they'll have the bioenno batteries here during the storm, and as long as we have an antenna, they'll be able to hit the repeater down in Volusia County and hear what's going on, and they may even help out with net control duties.
And we need to put up our alpha loop antenna in here in case we lose our antennas outside. During the storm, we tend to use the alpha loop.
Yeah, we've used the alpha loop
antenna, and last time we stuck it on the kitchen counter and it worked great, for what we were doing. But one of the things that we need to do is get cash. That was something that we learned through the years, that you need to get ahead of time.
Yeah. But what was interesting is that last year, we went to Home Depot about
2 years ago.
2 years, 2017. We went to Home Depot about a week after the storm, and Home Depot said, no cash back, no cash sales, I believe it was. They were making you use your credit card or debit card because there was no cash locally. The banks had run out of cash. So.
And there were signs saying there is no cash left in this town.
Yeah, that's what the signs at Home Depot said.
So if you return anything, you will not get cash.
Yeah, you'll get a store credit.
You'll get a store credit, I think it was.
Either that or go back to your card. So get cash, but expect that you might not be able to use it in some places if something happens like that. What else have you got? You got some good.
One thing that we learned is you need to have something that's going to be able to entertain you. Our children don't do their iPhones, and they don't entertain themselves with the computer or anything like that. But so we're ready for that kind of stuff. But we have found that the kids in the neighborhood don't have anything to do because they've not really been trained to entertain themselves.
Correct.
But we ourselves have find ourselves now and again being bored stiff during the hurricane, or during and after the hurricane, once the work is done, because we just don't have games and puzzle books or books to read or anything that we can do to entertain ourselves, because you're not getting out and riding a bike because there's still so much debris out there, and you're not going to want to be outside playing a game in the yard or something at 100-degree humidity.
That is true.
100 degrees and high humidity, sorry. But get things to entertain yourself. One thing that we do is because of the solar power, we can charge up. We have a little DVD player that we bring on trips with us.
Yeah.
And so we will charge that up, and every night that's what one of the things we would do as a family is we would sit down and watch a DVD of a couple shows of the Rat Patrol every night.
Did. You're talking about solar power, and there's probably people thinking, why don't you use a generator? Well, there's a couple of things. We could. I'm not against generators, and we will eventually get one of the whisper quiet ones from Honda or Onan, one of the good inverter generators that has the pure sine wave. But the challenge is, let's say down the road from us, not like 6 houses from us in DeLand last hurricane, somebody had a generator running, and it was one of those rattle trap generators that makes a lot of noise. And so the bad guys could hear where the generator was. So the bad guys...
You know where every generator is for blocks away.
When they heard it, they went into the shed overnight, pulled the guy's lawnmower out, started it, put it next to the generator, and then carted the generator off and put it in their truck and drove away. And they know they did it because they were caught later. So somebody stole a generator by starting a lawnmower. It also, those things burn a lot of fuel very quickly.
I think people don't realize that, how much it takes.
You take those generators, the big ones, like the 4,500 watt generators from Home Depot or Lowe's, they'll typically burn 8 gallons of fuel in, 8 hours or something like that, where the Honda one burned like a half a gallon in 8 hours. So you're going through your fuel very quickly. And there wasn't any fuel available in DeLand for at least, I think, 3 or 4 days after the storm that I saw. And that's not to say somebody who lives in DeLand says, no, they had it at this store. I didn't see any fuel available. We, because of all the years that I've spent storm chasing, I always carry like 40 or 50 gallons of fuel on the roof of the truck that I'm driving. So we have fuel. That is locked up, and you can't steal it very easily. You'll be hurt if you try to steal it. But people, a storm like this in the aftermath can bring out the best in people, and it can bring out the worst.
Yes.
We typically, or we
But
decided...
I will say, even for ourselves, after listening to people's noisy generators for a week,
Yes.
you yourself want to go out and hurt them.
Yeah, when you're
you
trying
want to go out and make that thing non-usable, not to be used.
Yeah, when you're trying to sleep and their generator is right next to your bedroom window.
And you're smelling the fumes,
smelling
and you
the
can't
fumes.
close your windows.
Yeah. So I'm not saying don't use generators, but keep in mind that if it turns into a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks without fuel or without electricity, if you can get fuel at $2.50 a gallon, it's going to cost you a lot of money to keep your refrigerator running, because it's not going to run your air conditioner most times unless you have a window unit. You're better off just eating that food up and throwing away what you lose. I mean,
Right.
And learn how to eat without having to have refrigerated food. And that brings us to the mountain house.
Well, let me go back and say, be considerate of your neighbors. You know, we did have a neighbor who basically put their generator right outside our children's window, and it filled our house with the fumes.
It did.
And that was just not nice.
Yeah, our yards were very close. Our houses were very close together.
Well, the way the wind was blowing
yeah.
that it put it all into our house, and at high humidity and 100 degrees in your house at night, you can't close the windows.
No, you can't.
But even the propane tanks, I was going to say, even the propane tanks, we had several friends who used up their propane tanks in 3 days and didn't seem to realize it was going to take a lot of money and
a lot of
use
fuel,
up so much fuel, and they couldn't get more.
That is true.
But go ahead.
No, well, I was going to talk about the Mountain House foods. You
Right.
guys, if you watch the channel, you've seen that we really love these Mountain House food dinners and breakfasts and whatnot. We found out about this stuff about a year ago when we were planning to go to the Dry Tortugas, and what we took with us to the Dry Tortugas.
We thought we would like other ones better.
Yeah, we tried other ones. I'll name it, Wise. That's the one everybody knows, Wise Foods. That Wise stuff is very salty. I mean, it will keep you alive, and we have a lot of it.
We've eaten, we kind of did a sampling, the children especially, but we as a family did a sampling of a whole bunch of different dehydrated foods that are out there on the market, and we were surprised. We liked the Mountain House best. It was comfort food to us, and we were very surprised. We really thought that from what we had tried to that point, we liked other brands.
Yeah.
Okay. But boy, we tried that Mountain House, and I was like, this is almost taste home cooked.
Yeah, some
in
of
a
it's
way.
really, and actually down there it says see my kit down below. You can click on that, and the Mountain House foods are in it's kit.com, and it's this place where you can list things that you use. So the Mountain House foods are there. The Sun Oven is there. Different things that we use, the bioenno batteries and stuff. So you can click and you can see what they are.
Or get the links, or
get the links.
Let's see here.
How do we make the water boil? Real quick, let me say that. So we tried a lot of things after Hurricane Irma. We tried a rocket stove that we built, and oh my goodness, that didn't work. We built it out of cinder blocks. I think we ruined one of our pots with all of the
Well,
smudge.
it kind of worked.
It
worked,
but I'm saying it took a while to boil the water. We found something called a Kelly kettle, and that's down there in the kit. That thing boils water. It boils like 6 cups of water in about 5 or 6 minutes. And we used it at the Dry Tortugas. It works great. The more the wind is blowing, the quicker it will boil your water, because you just turn the opening towards the wind and it fans the flames. We will use that if we are without power extensively to make our Mountain House foods. So what were you going to say?
Nothing. I'm just looking over my list here.
So, another thing. I use an electric razor. It's fully charged, and it will be plugged in. Well, actually, I'll be at the EOC with it, so it will be with me. But were I home, it would be plugged in and charging, so that when the power went out, it was fully charged.
Right.
And then
and we do the same with the computers and the
the
phones
computers,
and that kind of stuff.
And we use one of the 9 amp hour bioenno batteries to keep our phones charged, and we recharge all of that with our solar panels during the day.
Any oil lamps, that kind of stuff. You just want to keep and get everything fueled up.
Yeah.
However that is, whether it's battery or oil, or make sure you have your matches or your candles or whatever it is.
I was going to say the oil lamps, but we used candles somewhat before we used my lights after the last storm. And we realized how little light a candle gives out and how much heat it puts off.
Yes, and that was, for the first couple of days, that was a bad thing, because it just wasn't, it wasn't what you were used to, but it just wasn't enough light. However, later we found that while the LED light that you have produced a very bright light, now the neighbors are getting upset because now all their batteries are dead, all their candles are dead, because they just used up the couple that they had in their house, and now your house stands out like a lighthouse beacon because it's so bright. That's when it was better to bring out the lesser candles that weren't lighting up your whole house.
Correct.
Because you don't realize how dark an area, a town, can be when absolutely no lights are in it. The first several days, everybody's got some backup light. Beyond that, it was better to have the candles that did very little light. You didn't need as much light because now there's nobody in the neighborhood with any lights. So that was something that was huge. I'll hit, unless you've got something else to add to that.
No, go ahead.
One of the things that we've learned is pay your bills now, because you're not going to be able to pay them later, because there's not going to be any postal service if that's what you're doing. You're not going to have any internet if you're sending them over the internet.
Correct.
Your payments. You're not going to get to an ATM. Your bank's not necessarily going to be open in your area. So if you have if we have bills over the next couple of weeks, minimum week, we pay them now. because if we don't, not everybody, some people are lenient about things of, hey, we know your area's been hit. Others are not. Not everybody's lenient about that stuff. So
Correct.
so that's something to do. I guess another thing I'll hit on is, I mentioned about the laundry and everything. One thing that we've learned is at the very last minute, make sure everybody gets a shower, and like the girls, everybody washes their hair,
Yes.
because you're not going to get a good shower for several weeks possibly. And so, your hair feels kind of yucky, and you're not going to get a haircut for the next several weeks. So go ahead and get your hair trimmed up now if you need to.
I'm going to actually get my hair cut tonight.
Right.
So it's long.
So we've learned for him, get his hair cut now. Get Zechariah's hair cut now. While they can get a shower afterwards to get it all washed off, because you just don't have that luxury in a lot of ways, because afterwards there's a lot of hard work the next several days after the
Yes.
storm. And that's kind of another thing is that we learned last time is your calories after a storm, your calorie count of what your intake is needs to go up, because you're burning off so many calories
work a lot,
working.
yeah.
And that's something that we had not really put into the equation when we came up with our how much food do we think we need, how many calories a day are we, what's a normal day's worth of eating. And we realized we needed to add to that, because we were getting hungry. We were, the amount of water that you need to just sit around after a storm is one thing. The amount of water you need as you're working to cut trees down and do all that stuff, we needed almost double what we planned on needing.
That is true.
That we really hadn't done the math for it. In other places we've had a well pump or something like that we didn't really need to take into consideration and actually do the math. How much water do we need? We've got canned goods and that kind of stuff, meals, but we realized we were just needing more after the storm. Now, once we got everything cleaned up, then we could go back to a normal intake.
And we say needing to eat more.
Calories. Yes, we needed more calories.
We are definitely prepared, and even had we not gone to the store the other day to get a few comfort things, like we've depleted a lot of our Mountain House, so we got some more Mountain House just to put that back in the storage. Michelle cans, and she cans meat. We've got beef stew, we've got
Chicken,
Skyline chili, chicken. We've got all kinds of stuff that we can just dump into the pot, put it in the sun oven, and 2 hours later we got a hot meal. And what's cool about that,
Or less.
or
But
less,
yeah.
what's cool about that is that when you're not burning any fuel to make that meal, those two guys around the corner don't know that you're cooking food in your backyard. And I'm not trying to say that we wouldn't help somebody if they needed
Yes.
help, but these guys were trouble. And we did help them a couple times, but they became very belligerent and believed that they had a right to what you had. And it's unfortunate, but there are people like that. So
That was one of you touch on something else. One of the things that we realize is, again, sort of like the flashlights, there's kind of a different timing of things. Right after the storm, everybody's grilling.
yes.
You're smelling everybody's grills. It smells awesome in the neighborhood. After about 5 days, nobody's got any more food when they haven't prepared, and now their freezer's either lost it or it's been cleared out. Now's the time you don't want to be grilling after about 5 days, because now nobody's got any food, and now everybody knows
You're
you
drawing
have food.
somebody to eat your barbecue,
Right.
which and please don't we don't have the lifestyle of saying we're not going to help people. That's
No.
We'll
But you just can't help absolutely everybody in the neighborhood. You can help a few people, but
Yeah.
you can't help the stranger you've never met before who comes to your door demanding that you help them.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back 16 years because you brought up something that when you're talking about electricity. We lived in Currituck County, North Carolina, right by the Outer Banks, and it was Hurricane Isabel. And it looked to be a very bad storm, which it was. I sent Michelle and Zechariah up to Ohio to be with her mom mom and dad, and I think you guys were gone like two and a half weeks.
Yeah, something.
We were without power. Well, first of all, the hurricane took part of our roof off. It took nearly all of our vinyl siding off our house. It ripped a screen door kind of
One of the glass
apart.
type screen
Yeah,
doors.
like a screen door, or yeah, the
It's
storm door.
glass, yeah.
And it destroyed our front door. And I had stayed home because I was freelancing with the Weather Channel, and I came home after the storm and saw, the damage. We didn't have power for 3.5 weeks, and it was funny because like 3 days after the storm, I got a call. Cell phones worked, but the regular phone worked once. The home phone worked once. I called Michelle to tell her what I was alive and what happened, and then the line never hung up. It didn't work anymore. But I was hired to go fly around in a helicopter like those ones on MASH with the little bubble. And we're at the airport. And if any of you guys are in aviation, you know that if you're out there on the tarmac in a sterile area, you're part of a fraternity. And that fraternity is hey, you're one of us. So a Dominion Power helicopter landed, and the guy came out, and I was like, hey, man, any way I can get my house hooked up? And he's like, sure, let me see what I can do. And he pulled up his computer, and he looked and goes, oh, dude, you are the last house on the last leg of where we're going to get to because you are the only person on that branch. And I'm like, man. So we were without power, and 3 weeks of living with no electricity, even for somebody who's lived in Africa. Actually, that was a little bit before we went to Africa. We went to Africa right after that. So, but I'd been to Africa. I've been in austere conditions, but not for 3.5 weeks. And it got me to the point of like, wow, I can't do this. You need to have a plan that includes a way for you to get into the air conditioning. And that brings up to what we did after Hurricane Irma. We would go like to Daytona Beach or to, hey, Subway is open, or Firehouse Subs. Let's go there. That way we can sit down in the air conditioning. We can have a meal that we didn't have to cook.
A cold drink. It was a
cold
cold drink, and it wasn't so much the meal, it was the cold drink and the air conditioning just to get out of the heat.
So you think about that, but they didn't have the internet, so they couldn't run credit cards. So that's where the cash comes in. That's what I'm getting at. There are ways, if you have a friend who has a swimming pool, hey, can we come jump in the pool? There's ways to make your life a little bit more livable, even though you're in bad conditions. And I know we're rambling on and on here, but these are things that we've been through over the years. Have you got anything else?
No, not really. Not really. Other than we still have a million things to do today.
Yeah, we do.
I've got very few
And
things
I've got
checked
to
off
go
my
to the
list.
Emergency Operations Center and help with what we're doing with Aries and do a lot of planning. A couple things: like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button so it will ding. I most likely will not be going down to where landfall is because I have duties here to do storm chasing. But keep watching, because if there's
we may still
stuff,
have weather showing.
if there's weather to show and I need to be out and about, I'll do some storm chasing. If we do some storm chasing, we were going to have I rode along with HamRadio.World Hurricane Dorian shirt that we'll make available. These, storm chasing is really what I've done for the last 25, 30 years. And in my heart, I want to be out there. The adrenaline junkie wants to be out there, but I've made a commitment. I took this position as emergency coordinator, and my duty is to be here. If there's a way to show the storm to you guys, it may not be long videos. Even if I just walk outside while the wind's blowing to show you, click that subscribe button with the bell so it will let you know when we're live. Anybody who's here in the hurricane area, be safe, be ready. You guys up in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, you need to be watching this, because if it makes that right turn earlier, it may be you instead of us. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
The thing about hurricanes is you don't know where it's going, and really you need several days to prepare. So whether it's coming here or not, we still need to get prepared. And the same goes for some of these other areas. Whether it comes to your area, unless you're way out of range, they still need to prepare too, which still affects, again, your grocery stores, whether they have stuff. It still affects your fuel. So always keep your car fueled up.
Yep.
Because say you fill up your car and you think on a normal day you can get several states away or so. What if you're stuck on the highway? And everybody else is stuck on the highway. Your gas is getting eaten up as you idle, sitting there on the highway parked.
I remember seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of cars dead on the interstate in Houston for Hurricane Rita, right after Katrina hit, because people tried to get out and there was gridlock and they ran out of gas. If you're going to get out. Our good friend Jim at November Delta 1 Charlie, he has routes planned that don't include highways. Take this left turn here, take that right turn there, that allow him to get out if he's going to get out. I've done the same thing. Those are some things to think of. I wish we were doing something where we could know what your questions are. Oh, I forgot this. I have a bag of comfort food that I'm taking with me to the EOC. They will have food for us made by the inmates at the prison across the street, and it's kind of like you're in a building full of cops and the prisoners are making you food. Okay.
Yeah, not just that. You got to think it's like going on a trip or a retreat or something where they're giving you bad food to bring fruit, to bring that kind of stuff besides just comfort food.
I've got freeze-dried fruit in there. I've got some cashews, some.
It's something to consider because at this time of year you're not, or it's situations like this you're not eating normal, and that's huge. Also, is people can get really cranky if things are not the same.
Let's. You can get so far with homemade chocolate cookies. I managed to get a helicopter ride from St. Thomas. Yes. From St. Thomas back to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Marilyn by giving the helicopter guy a bag of cookies Michelle had made me. But it brings up that something that I didn't have with Hurricane Matthew last year. And if you guys watched the channel back then, I was in the Panhandle working, live streaming, filming, and then the need came up that they needed help at a shelter, and I put away my camera and spent about a week there at the shelter. I had all kinds of food that was nutritious. I didn't have any junk food. And after about 3 days, you're really craving an Oreo or a Snicker bar. And a Snicker bar would have been mush. But so when I went to Louisiana last month for the hurricane, and I don't even remember the name of it, I made sure I got some Nutter Butters and just little packs of 2 of them at a time that allowed me to have. What's going on?
Hey, Zechariah. I see the garbage truck over here. We have a few more things.
Oh, yeah. So
can you clean out? This is our last garbage pickup before the storm, and might be for a while. Faith Anna, can you get the garbage out of the bathroom?
Yeah, so all
in
of
the
that,
hallway?
all of that, Zechariah. Thank you, buddy.
And then get them out?
So I have, is there anything in the bag, Zechariah?
No, not
No?
really.
Okay. I have some junk food that after a few days you just get to that point that you have a sweet tooth that you really need to get it. And that's something that in all of these years I never really considered.
I did.
Yes, she did. So I've got some sweet stuff in there too. So anyway, I think that's it for now. Keep watching. Like I said, like and hit the subscribe button and the bell button so you know when we post a video or go live. And thank you for watching. Is this where we say 73?
Yes, it is, but I need to add to my list.
Oh, Mom's gonna. What are you gonna add to your list?
I need to add to clear off my like photos and all that stuff from my phone so that that I can take videos here of what's going on.
Yep.
So that maybe you can post them later.
Yep.
Since we're going to be in different places.
That's
and again,
true.
it's a memory. It's record of what we've done and what we've been through. That you don't want to duplicate, but you can't duplicate even if you.
Yeah, you know, pretty much all our home movies are on this YouTube channel. So hopefully YouTube doesn't go out of business.
That too. So yeah, we need to. There's so many things to do, and again, I need some master list that I just now add on to
Yeah.
every year or something. But for some reason, I don't do that.
Yep. All right, well, we've got a lot to do today, and I need to work on getting photos off your phone.
Yes.
So, 73?
73.